I am putting this rather simply here. Imaginatively, you have greater freedom to express feelings than you do practically. An earlier particular fear felt during the day, involving, say, a loss of a job, may then be translated when you close your eyes into a series of seemingly unrelated symbols, all, however, connected to that one fear. You may see, in a quick series of pictures, a deep hole in the ground. It may be replaced by a street urchin, obviously poor and from another century. A casket may appear, or a black wallet fly through the air. You may see a severe, dark, wintry scene. The picture of a character from an old schoolbook long forgotten may appear and disappear. In between may be a grouping of opposing symbols representing your hope, a spring flower, a table loaded with food, a new suit of clothes, any sign of abundance that would have meaning to you. Nowhere would the thought of the potential loss of a job enter in. It would seem to you that you had forgotten it. Through the use of symbols, however, your feelings would be given full play, each image rising and falling in flow with feelings so far underneath consciousness, pools of emotion, that you were not aware of them. They would automatically bring about these images, however. Now with reflection, you could connect these with their origin, but usually they would pass you by. If you let yourself lie still longer with eyes closed, the symbolism would continue to change character, losing perhaps some of its visual characteristics and growing more intense in other directions. You might think you smell a particular odor, for example, that is distasteful to you, following through with the situation as given. You might instead translate the fear into a frightening physical sensation, and suddenly feel that you are falling or that something unpleasant touched you. Any of these changing characteristics of symbols should alert you to the altered state of your consciousness. If you let yourself drift off into sleep here, you would most probably manufacture 2 or 3 dreams that symbolize the fear, dreams in which you consider and try out possible solutions within the dream context. The job situation might never appear as such within any of the dreams, of course. Still, to the unconscious, the problem has been set and given. In the following deep protected areas of sleep, the higher centers of the inner self are allowed to function and come to the aid of the 3-dimensional oriented portion of the personality. This more liberated self sees the situation much more clearly, suggests a given line of action, but does not order it, and informs the dreaming self. The dreaming self then manufactures a group of dreams in which the solution is stated within a symbolic dream situation. The final and more specific interpretations is done in areas of dreaming closer to the waking self, when the symbols grow more and more specific. There is a much more narrow aspect to symbolism, therefore. The closer you get to waking consciousness, the more limited and narrow the symbol. The handier it is in a given physical circumstance, the less valuable it is as a waking lifeline characteristic symbol. To some extent, the more precise a symbol is, the less meaning it can contain. In the most important dream work, done in the deep protected sleep periods, the symbols are powerful enough and yet condensed enough so that they can be broken down, used in a series of seemingly unrelated dreams as connectives, retain their original strength and still appear in different guises, becoming in each succeeding dream layer more and more specific. Now, even as you go about your day, your consciousness fluctuates, and you can catch yourself symbolizing in these different ways, if you get in the habit of observing but not interpreting the state of your mind. Each physical event that has happened to you is filed away within your psyche as a definite group of symbols. These do not represent the experience, they contain the experience. These represent your personal symbol bank as far as your present life is concerned. There is a great unity between your daytime symbols and your dreaming ones. In a miraculous shorthand, many symbols carry the burden of far more than one experience, of course, and one symbol will therefore evolve not only one given experience, but similar ones. Personal association, therefore, is highly involved with your personal bank of symbols, and it operates in the dream states precisely as in waking life, but with greater freedom, and drawing from the future in your terms as well as from the past. Therefore, you have greater use of symbolism in the dream state, for you are aware of past and future symbols. These vary in intensity, often they cluster together. But such multidimensional symbols will appear then in many ways, not simply visually. They will affect not only your own physical reality, but all realities in which you are involved. In a matter of speaking, the symbols that you know are but the tail end of greater symbols. Now, when I refer to your personal bank of symbols, I mean to specify that this bank was yours from the day of your birth and before. It contained the symbols of your past existences in your terms, and in your terms you add to it in this life. This bank of symbols must be activated, however. For example, you have images when you are born, internal visual images, symbols that are activated the moment you open your eyes for the first time. These serve you as learning mechanisms. You keep trying to utilize your eyes properly until exterior images conform with the inner patterns. This is extremely important and not understood by your scientists. The eye opening activates the inner mechanism. If there is something wrong physically with the eyes, if they are blind for example, then that particular mechanism is not activated at that time. The personality may have chosen to be born blind for its own reasons. If those reasons change, or if inner psychic developments occur, then the physical eyes will be healed, and the inner mechanism activated. There are endless varieties of behavior along these lines. The inner banks of symbols, however, operate as a drawing account, latent unless you take advantage of them. You think before you learn a language, as I mentioned earlier in this book, but you already have at your psychic fingertips past experiences from other lifetimes to guide you. Those who are born into the same nationality, say, twice consecutively, learn to speak much quicker the second time around. Some infants will think in the language of a past life before the new language is learned. All of this has to do with the use of symbols. Sound is itself a symbol. You understand that from a given point of silence, sound begins and grows louder. What you do not understand is that from that given point of silence, which is your point of non-perception, sounds also begin that grow deeper and deeper into silence, yet still have meaning and as much variety as the sounds that you know, and these are also symbols. The thought unspoken has a quote-unquote sound that you do not hear, but that is very audible at another level of reality and perception. Trees, as they stand, are a sound that again you do not perceive. In your dreams, and particularly beyond those dreams that you recall, are areas of consciousness in which these sounds are automatically perceived and translated into visual images. They operate as a sort of shorthand. Given certain sounds, you could recreate your universe as you know it unconsciously, and any other multidimensional symbol can contain all the reality that you know. Now, physically, smell, sight, and sound are combined together to give you your main sense data and compose your physical senses. At other levels, however, these are separated. Odors, therefore, have a visual reality, and as you know, visual data can also be perceived in terms of other sense perceptions. The symbols can come together or fly apart, can be perceived separately or as a unity. As each event has its own symbol for you, so you have your characteristic way of combining these. These symbols can be translated and perceived in many terms, as a series of notes for example, as a combination of senses, as a series of images. At various stages of consciousness, you will perceive the symbols in different terms. The multidimensional symbol in its entirety, then, has a reality in other states of consciousness, but also at other levels of reality entirely. You operate as if your thoughts were secret, though you should know by now that they are not. Not only are your thoughts apparent through telepathic communications, for example, but without your conscious awareness, they also form what you may call pseudo-images, quote-unquote, beneath the range of physical matter as you normally perceive it, in some cases, or quote-unquote above the same range. It is, therefore, as if your thoughts appeared within other realities as objects, alive and vital in themselves, growing into other systems as flowers or trees grow up seemingly from nothing within physical reality. These can then be used as the raw material, so to speak, in certain other systems. They are the given, quote-unquote, natural data, the raw materials of creativity in the realities that you help seed but do not perceive. In this manner of speaking, your thoughts then follow laws. Their behaviors follow laws, and their activities that you do not understand, though you call your thoughts your own. They are then manipulated independently of you by other kinds of consciousness as ever-changing natural phenomena. The native consciousness within such systems is not aware of the origin of this phenomena, nor of your own reality. They take the evidence that appears to their senses as reality, as most of you do. It would not occur to them that this phenomena originated outside of their own system. If I were to make the same statement, for example, to any of my readers, I would be accused of saying that physical reality was composed of the discards of the universe. I am not saying that, nor implying it in the case just mentioned. In your system, you have a direct hand in the formation of physical reality. Your natural given data is the result of individual, mass, and collective thoughts, feelings, and emotions materialized. Your system, in this respect, is more creative than the systems just mentioned. On the other hand, within these other systems, there is a strong, innovative group consciousness developing, in which identity is retained, but greater interplay allowed between individuals, a large creative interchange of symbol pools, a drawing upon mental and psychic symbols with greater facility. Because of this, these individuals recognize more clearly the connection between creative image and given sense data. They purposefully alter and change their given sense data and experiment with it. All of this involves a working with symbols in a most intimate manner. At certain levels of your personality, you are aware of all the different ways in which symbols are used, not only in your system, but in others. As mentioned earlier, no system of reality is closed. Your thoughts and images and feelings, therefore, alter the given sense data in some other systems. The innovative patterns developed in those systems, however, can be to some extent perceived within your own. There are constant bleed-throughs. In your various stages of consciousness, you pass through areas that can be correlated with many of these systems. Some stages through which you pass are native stages to other kinds of consciousness, and while passing through these, you will find yourself using symbols in the way that is characteristic of that level. Now, symbols should be fluid, ever-changing in their form. Some can be used as casements to house original experiences, as methods of deception, therefore, rather than illumination. When this happens, fear is always involved. Fear, taken into the various stages of consciousness, acts as a distorting lens, hiding the natural dimensions of all symbols, acting as a barrier and as an impediment to free flow. Symbols of an explosive nature serve as releasing agents, setting loose that which has been encased. Without physical storms, you would all go insane. The aggressive nature of symbols is little understood, nor the relationship between aggression and creativity. These are far from opposing characteristics, and without an aggressive thrust, symbols would lack their high mobility. They would exist in a permanent kind of environment. It is both the creative and aggressive aspects of consciousness that allow it to use symbols, to move through various levels of experience, and the aggressive nature of thought that so propels it, despite your knowledge, into realities that you do not understand. Aggressiveness and passivity are both behind symbols of birth, for both are needed. They are both beneath symbols of death, though this is not understood. Inertia results when aggressiveness and creativity are not in the proper proportions, when consciousness leans too severely in one direction or another, when the flow of symbols is either too quick or too slow for the particular psychological environment in which you dwell. Pauses then occur. To put it as simply as possible, there is an almost inconceivable moment in which a no reality occurs, in which a symbol is caught between motion and no motion, a time of uncertainty. This is of course translated in many ways and reflected. In such periods, certain symbols can be lost to all intents and purposes, dropping out of an individual's experience, leaving gaps of inertia. These gaps exist quite literally in many systems. You encounter them on many levels. You may find yourself experiencing a state of consciousness, for example, in which nothing seems to happen, and no psychological landscape or recognizable symbols occur. These exist not only psychologically or psychically, but as blank areas in terms of space. The space may be filled finally with new symbols. If you are perceptive enough, you can sometimes catch yourself encountering such states of reality in which nothing appears and no signs of any consciousness outside of your own is apparent. Such blank spots can be seeded with new symbols, and are often used as channels through which new creative ideas and inventions are inserted. These gaps are recognized by others, therefore, and viewed as dark spaces. They also represent areas of no resistance for those mind travelers who are probing inner realities. They represent uncluttered areas, but also open channels, inactive in themselves but passively waiting. Now, some symbols also wait in such a passive manner to be activated. They represent future experience in your terms, that presently lie latent. These blank spaces of inertia, therefore, are creative to some extent, and that these other symbols may swim into view within them.